Welcome to the Clemson Insider. I'm Will Vandervoort. This is On the Beat, our On the Beat segment. And today, joining us, an old friend of mine. He's been on here before, Scott Kiefer of the Greenville News, the beat writer for Clemson Sports. Scott's been working there a good long time. I think that's the way we'll do it. But I've been working at the Clemson beat a good long time too. So We're kind of the same. But Scott, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate you coming back again for a second time.
Glad to do it, and here we are. We're over the midpoint of the season, so it's kind of, you see the home stretch ahead, and so there's plenty of good topics, right?
Yeah, plenty. I don't know. Is it the home stretch? Because the last 4 years is sort of, we haven't ended until way into January.
That's right.
So
the home stretch of the regular season.
Yeah, home stretch of the regular season. There we go. That's a little bit better.
Yeah.
Speaking about that. We were talking before the show. There's a percentage chance, that maybe the season ends a little sooner for us than expected, which is crazy to think. But could it be, Scott, that Clemson doesn't make the college football playoff?
Oh my
goodness. Could it happen?
Hush your mouth.
I know.
Don't
Shut up.
Don't speak in those terms.
Yes.
That's just crazy thought.
I know, but
hey, no, you did talk about a scenario where who knows what can happen, particularly with Clemson winning and still falling in the polls.
Yeah, I mean, jokes aside, Jeff Scott, where he's like, well, we think about if we keep winning by 35 points every week, we'll end up falling out of the top 10 by December. But that's great. They got a good sense of humor about it. But in all seriousness, though, 3 out of the last 4 weeks, Clemson has fallen out of the polls. Fallen in the polls, and all 3 times came after a victory.
Yeah.
Now granted, we kind of understand the first one where they squeaked out a win at North Carolina. Kind of surprised all of us, I think. Right. And give North Carolina credit, played a great game. But then they fell to number 3 after beating Florida State by 31 points in a dominating fashion where they led 42-0 before Florida State even scored. And probably could have put 80 on Florida State if they wanted to. And then they end up dropping again last week when they won 45-10 at Louisville on the road in a game that there wasn't anybody in that press box that thought Louisville was going to win at any point in that game. Am I correct?
Yeah.
I mean, we all knew Clemson was dominating the line of scrimmage, controlling the game. It wasn't like at North Carolina where we're sitting there like midway through the third quarter. It's like, there's a chance they could lose this game.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that at Louisville.
No, and it puts you in a mindset of you're thinking, what has Clemson got to do? And it also makes you question, Dabo's philosophy of playing so many guys every game. I mean, maybe they should go out there and polish off these opponents and win by 50 or 60 and leave the starters in until the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That's not Dabo's philosophy. He wants to build for the next season in the future and get guys experience that deserve to play. And, I guess to some degree you could say it's backfiring a little bit on them this season.
It is, and it helps them in the playoffs because we saw it last year where they're well rested. And this is something that goes back to 2015 season when they just didn't have the depth on defense. And remember, they had an open week before they played Notre Dame. It would have been their 3rd game of the season. Right. And then they went like 11 straight weeks without a break. And then they had no depth on defense, and they were worn out by the time they got to the playoffs. And I think it was something where, and Dabo's talked about it, it's like, we can't allow that to happen again. If we're going to be in this position, we need to have the team ready to go in the playoffs. So, he's got this plan in place, as you talked about, plays the younger players. They get a lead on a team that they're supposed to beat. Hey, let's start bringing them in. They even bring them in the first quarter, let's be honest. I mean, Clemson generally plays about 50 players in the first quarter. 50. Most teams don't play 50 the whole game.
No.
And they're playing 50 in the first quarter because he's doing exactly what you said. He's trying to get some experience. That way, if they need them later in the year, also it takes some of the wear and tear off the starters, and they're more fresh come playoff time. But you're right. I mean, when teams are trying to now, saw this in BCS era, was all about style points.
Style points, yeah.
And we thought that wasn't going to have to be the case, but it's like the AP voters are trying to push this narrative that you have to win by 100 points if you're playing some of the patsies.
That's a scary concept, and you think, I personally am 100% in with Dabo on, I think that's the best approach and the best philosophy, what he does. And I think, like you say, it was very evident in last year's postseason. I mean, they were talking about guys who were not only well rested but completely healthy and injury free. I mean, that pays big dividends. So, the key is it doesn't matter if you're first, second, third, or fourth in this college football playoff rankings that will come out in a couple weeks. just be in there somewhere. And I think if Clemson wins out, given their track record, given the fact of how many games they've won in a row, they should be in there no matter what the judgments are.
Right, but then here we go. So I think that first week is very important where Clemson lands. Because if they land at number 4, Clemson fans are going to be sweating it, and so is Clemson, whether they want to admit that or not. Because right now, from what we know right now, if you're just going to play, we can play the win-loss game. You know, the teams can't, but we can, as I guess you call us analysts. Loosely. Anyway, you know, I guess you can, you know, we can look at the win-loss game and say, okay, it looks like Ohio State's going to go undefeated. It looks like Oklahoma's going to go undefeated. It looks like either Alabama or LSU, one of the two is going to go undefeated. Then Clemson's going to go undefeated, it looks like. So, you know, okay, so everybody's like, oh, well, that's fine. There's 4 teams undefeated, right? Not so fast, my friend. Okay. What happens in that LSU game? First of all, does Tua play? You know, and if he does, how healthy is he?
Right.
And how much of that, if LSU were to win, how much is the the committee going to look at that, and I call it the Kelly Bryant effect, but Kelly Bryant was injured against Syracuse.
Right.
Remember, they kept saying, well, he got injured, Clemson might have won that game had he not injured. So they looked at Clemson as undefeated as opposed to 1 loss. So do they look at Alabama the same way in this scenario? If Tua isn't 100% and they lose the game, and it's obvious that maybe that's what caused them to lose the game, okay, that's one scenario. The second scenario is, what if Alabama and LSU are 1-2? Doesn't matter which one. They're both 1-2. And the winner of, let's say, Alabama wins the game in one of the greatest games of all time.
35-34.
Right.
Hail Mary.
Exactly. Remember the Louisville-Clemson game a few years ago? How some people still thought, even though Clemson won the game, that Louisville was better than Clemson the first couple of college football polls. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so it's that same scenario. So then they're going to be like, well, is 1 loss Alabama to LSU, who's outstanding, is that better than Clemson going undefeated in the ACC and all? There's your chances. What I'm saying, Clemson could miss.
Be some uneasy people in the Clemson fan base for sure. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, we could be in the Orange Bowl as opposed to going to Phoenix or Atlanta.
It's not unfathomable.
Not that there's anything wrong with going to Miami in December, personally,
but not when your aspiration is the playoff every year and the national title every year.
Right. I mean, you know, and so I think it's something that you know the fans out there need to pay attention to and watch out for. It is. I know you see a lot of it. They all tell you the same thing they tell me. Oh, it doesn't matter because all that matters is the college football playoff poll. Yeah, but if you're number 4 in that first poll, you need to be sweating because Clemson going undefeated just ain't a guarantee that they're going to get in my opinion. Should they? Absolutely, they should. Yeah. I don't think there's no guarantee. Not in this world of college football that we live in, especially when Alabama's the greatest thing since sliced bread world that we live in. And if it's Clemson going against Alabama for that final spot, and a 1-loss Alabama, the Tua factor and all that, who knows what they're going to do. Yeah. So, but you know, there's some football to be played between then. You know, we'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But your thoughts, though, on the AP poll, I want to give you that thought. You know, you didn't really comment on that. What was your thoughts on Clemson sliding again in the polls? As a former pollster, I used to vote in the poll. I'm embarrassed that I voted in the Associated Press poll. I really am. It's embarrassing, guys, that my colleagues are not paying attention to actually what's going on, what's happening on the field.
Yeah, for the first time in a long time, I can say that I entrust the collegiate coaches much more so than the media voters.
Same here.
I mean, I think they've got it right. You know, they've got Clemson number 2 there, and I can't say that I was surprised by the AP result this week because they had kind of set the table like you saw it the previous week.
That's right.
I mean,
Ohio State kind of got closer. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think that it was a surprise to anyone, but it's still crazy to think that it happened. But here we are.
It's like Clemson got punished for Trevor Lawrence throwing 2 interceptions.
Yes.
The whole team got punished for Trevor Lawrence throwing 2. I mean, is that crazy?
Yeah, it is.
That's the reason they fell in the poll?
Yes.
I mean, it makes no sense to me.
No. So, you know, all Clemson can do at this point is continue to win, continue to play impressively, and see what happens in several weeks.
which I think they'll do.
I think they will.
I think they will too. Your thoughts on this Clemson team? You know, we're a little bit more than halfway through the season, 7-0. Amazingly, 5-0 in the ACC. This will be their 6th ACC game already.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like 3 games ahead of everybody else in the conference.
They've distanced themselves.
Yeah. Your thoughts on Clemson halfway through? Do you see this being a team that can win another national championship?
I do, but you know, it's crazy to me in that when they entered this season, I think everyone thought, you know, with all the offensive weapons they have returning, the offense will set the standard, will set the pace. That defense, the rebuilt defense, will have to play catch up. Mm-hmm. It's been kind of the opposite. I mean, the defense has played well out of the gate with these young players maturing rapidly and really becoming contributors, and then guys like Isiah Simmons and James Skalski playing out of their minds. Mm-hmm. To me, the defense is way ahead of where I think anyone thought it would be at this point. And I think that bodes well, because when you have a strong defense, you can manage on offense. I mean, look, Clemson could score, 2 touchdowns a game and still win.
Absolutely.
so I think they're in a good place.
Yeah, I mean, I think North Carolina's a perfect example of that. They scored only 21 points, but that was good enough to win the game.
Right.
You know, that's how good the defense has been playing. And a lot of people don't recognize this, though. And I talked to Ross Taylor, Clemson's football communications contact. Me and him were talking last week. Clemson's starting. You know, I asked him to double check on this, and he's trying to figure out the exact, you know, how you look at it. But if I'm right on this, Clemson's starters on defense have allowed just 3 touchdowns all year. They're starting 11, and that all came against North Carolina. Their other 6 games, they haven't allowed a touchdown. The starters haven't allowed a touchdown.
There you go.
That is crazy to think about. You know, and that's good on good.
Yeah.
You know, and so like Florida State, Louisville, Texas A&M. Charlotte. Charlotte got the touchdown because of Will Sweeney. Let's be honest. I mean, Will Sweeney. I mean, that's what happened. Kathleen's gonna be mad at me now. So anyway, but you know, all these. You look at all these scores. You go back and look at them. It's like every touchdown came in mop-up duty for the opposing team.
Think how incredible they would be statistically had they kept starters in longer.
Yeah.
I mean, but hey, again, it goes back to that philosophy.
I think their defense efficiency is like number 1 in the country. Efficiency, not deficiency. Me with words. That's the Bamberg in me. Yeah. The defensive efficiency is like number 1 in the country. They're number 1 in FBS quarterback rating for the opposing team. I think it's like below 6. It's like 5.8 or something stupid. Yeah. You know,
if you're a quarterback, you don't want to see Clemson coming into town.
No, I asked a question on the message board today. What's better, Clemson's secondary or the New England Patriots? I mean, because they're both so dominant, and teams can't throw the football on them. Yeah. I don't know if you watched the Louisville game though. So I went back and rewatched it yesterday, and I always go back and look at it and see, you know, something I missed, things like that. The Louisville quarterback, the second kid, look how scared he was by the end of the third quarter. His eyes were like this. He wanted nothing to do with Clemson's defense. Yeah. He was aggravated, he was fatigued, and he was like scared. And it was clearly on his face, like he wanted out of that game. He wanted to tap out bad. Yeah. And that's what they've been doing to a lot of guys.
Yep. And to me, the whole instigator of that is Isiah Simmons. Mm-hmm. That guy is all over the field. As Dabo told us this week, he could be an all-conference performer at 3 positions, and I believe that. That guy, I mean, you talk about a future Pro Bowler. I look at him, and that's what I see. How about you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's amazing, and not only that, you saw him put his hand in the dirt a few times too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's playing a little bit of defense. He lined up. I was talking to who was it? I was talking to one of the former Clemson players a few weeks ago, and he says he noticed if you watch Isiah Simmons a couple of times, he's lined up over the nose guard. And then as fast as the ball is snapped, he's already playing deep safety.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you're a quarterback, he's saying, what do? You're sitting there just like, okay, the guy was there just a second ago, now he's there. What the heck do I do? Yeah. And it confuses everybody.
His speed for his size is just off the charts.
It's just off the charts. And then quietly, the guys nobody noticed, Kayvon Wallace and Tanner Muse, they're using them in crazy ways too that, you know, nobody recognizes what these guys are doing either, but Kayvon Wallace is all over the place as well, he's playing a little bit of nickel, he's playing a little bit of safety, he's playing corner sometimes, and and plays them all well. And so they don't know what to do with him either. And Tanner Muse, is he blitzing or is he going to stay back? What's he doing? I mean, what Brent Venables is doing with those guys is amazing.
I was going to say, Brent Venables proving once again that he's the best defensive coordinator in the country.
Mm-hmm. And Levon Kirkland said that it reminded them of the defense they played. They called it, what did he say today? They called it a fire zone defense that he played with the Steelers. And he said what it is they take three guys here in the middle and three guys in the back, and then they blitz with somebody that you don't expect is going to come blitzing. So it just, they'll rush their four, and then all of a sudden here comes another guy that you don't expect coming. He said that's exactly what this Clemson defense reminds him of, was one of those Steelers line defenses. And he played on some pretty darn good Pittsburgh defenses. Just real fast, Clemson, Boston College, your thoughts on this game this week? A very physical Boston College team.
Yep, but I think another convincing win for Clemson, because Boston College is single-faceted. I mean, if they can't open holes for A.J. Dillon, and then they're done. And he has not had great success against Clemson either of the past two seasons. I don't think there's any reason to think that's going to change.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I do still think Clemson's weakness in this defense is up front. They're getting better, but I still think the middle of that defense is still where the weakness lies. Just, I think from an experience standpoint more than anything.
Sure.
I think from a talent standpoint they're fine. I think Boston College tries to exploit that because I think that's their best chance. You might see Boston College use a tight end a little bit, I think, this week. We saw a couple other teams. Who was it? Florida State did it once or twice. I think they should have went to it more. That little shovel pass, that Pittsburgh pass, I like to call, with the tight end. I think I can see Boston College exploiting Clemson's blitzing linebackers and stuff by using that. So we'll see. A.J. Dillon, and that's really their only chance. I really believe it. That's really their only chance. So we'll see what happens anyway. But that's all we got here on the beat this week. For Scott Kiefer, I'm Will Vandervoort. Stay tuned to Clemson Insider the rest of the week as we get you ready for Clemson, Boston College, and Death Valley on Saturday night.